and such like. Slow. Oh, Councillor Old is just joining. Right. Okay, we are now live on YouTube. So welcome and good evening to Wincanton Town Council full council meeting on the 24th of August at 18:58, where we are being live streamed to YouTube. So I'm just going to wait a moment for see if Councillor Waters can join, so it doesn't interrupt flow wherever possible. So while
she did say she was joining.
Yes, I believe she has connectivity issues.
Right.
So we have a minute, so I'm going to ask councillors to confirm they've had the agenda for today and the papers.
Yes.
So can I have a show of hands from the room that you have the papers and the agenda? Thank you, I appreciate that. So before, we're still waiting for Councillor Waters, so I'm going to proceed. We have a locum clerk joining us today, Richard, he's on the screen, and his role today is to clerk the meeting and prepare minutes following the meeting for council. So I may well take things slightly slower to enable our clerk, our locum clerk, who's covering in the absence of our clerk, to actually record names. So can I ask that people are cognizant of that when we're going around undertaking the duties of this meeting? So it's now 7 p.m, 1900 hours on the 24th of August. So I'm now going to commence the meeting. So in terms of next part on the agenda, we are going to go through the formal agenda as stated. You've confirmed you've received agenda and papers for this meeting, some of which I'm sorry came out late. Correspondence, because I wanted to make sure all of the final correspondence for the week was in, but also to ensure for me to, as chairman, get advice from SALC that we could prepare the checklist for this meeting, which I did, to enable me to then share that with you today. But we will discuss that at a point in time, but just for clarity purposes. So the first part of before we enter our formal agenda, the first element of that is public participation, which I will move into now. We have two members of the public on the screen in the meeting today. Can I ask that, do you wish to speak?
I do, but I believe there are others who wish to speak under public participation first.
Okay, Councillor Old, do you wish to speak under public participation? Before we do so, can I check with council that in our standing orders we can do so, because just because of recordings? Is anyone aware of that? Yes, Councillor Eddington, sorry.
If you're querying a councillor speaking during public participation, at the meeting on the 3rd of August, there was no public participation, but you addressed members of the council and the whole meeting as a resident.
Chairman and resident, I believe I said, yes.
Could extend the same courtesy to other councillors as residents.
Okay, Councillor Tudgay, can I invite you to speak?
Good evening, everybody. I see nothing in standing orders that would prohibit a councillor from speaking under public participation, and I believe it's happened on numerous occasions in the past.
Okay, thank you for that clarity. So, Councillor Old, in your role as a resident, I'm going to start the clock now. You are open to speak.
For 18 months, I've had to endure being bullied and harassed. You complain at every opportunity about my behaviour, yet no reflection is taken on your own behaviour whatsoever. And yet it is you that has racked up over 100 formal complaints about you. I have watched you be the cause of 2 clerks going off sick. You have belittled my fellow councillors. You have picked people to co-opt scripting what they say, fixing votes, minutes of meetings have been falsely changed, money spent from reserves like it's going out of fashion. Council business has been conducted outside of full council. You have no working relationship with your county or district councils. And in your mayor's message, you have singled out businesses that you support and have alienated other business owners in the town. You're a poor chair, exceptionally poor public speaker and writer. You have broken lockdown on a number of occasions. You have also had a loan meeting with SSDC and sold us out over the car parks and then completely denied it. And you have now had a loan meeting with a property developer and then the funding for the sports ground was heavily cut. In the last 4 meetings alone, you have agreed an expenditure of over 9,500 from our reserves. Never in the history of Wincanton Town Council has one sole individual or council caused so much trouble and ill feeling. The only positive has been YouTube, which has brought to light for many your true colours and exposed you for what you are. In my hands, I have a petition. It is still work in progress, but it currently has 507 names on it. We've also been approached by several substantial business owners who want to put money behind a campaign to get you out. I know maths is not your strong point, so let me confirm for you that this is more people than voted any of you in. 422 was your election result, Barrow. As the public want a vote of no confidence, I am quite happy to table a vote of no confidence, which I shall be doing now. Of course, we already know how the vote will go, but I propose a vote of no confidence in the chair, Susan Shelbourne Barrow. I ask if any of my fellow councillors wish to second that motion. Thank you, Sue Hinks, for seconding that motion. And now we'll take a vote. For all those that are in favour of a vote of no confidence in the chair, Shelbourne Barrow, please raise your hands.
Can I stop you for a moment? Councillor Tudgay, who is the deputy chairman for this council, would like to speak.
Chair, fellow councillors, whilst I supported the case for Councillor Oak to speak as a member of the public, I do not think she is able, under any of our legislation, to then go forward and make a proposal. I think if Councillor Ode, or anyone else for that matter, wishes to put a motion to council, then it should go through the agenda in the proper way. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Tudgay. So with that in mind, Councillor Old, the vote you've proposed will no longer go forward under public participation. Can I now ask for Councillor Eddington, do you wish to speak as a resident?
As a resident and as a councillor.
You can't speak as a councillor.
I'll say as a resident.
As a resident, yes, please.
As a councillors, it is with regret that I am resigning as a member of Wincanton Town Council. I apologise to everyone who voted for me, but over the last 6 months or so, I have been increasingly concerned with the poor leadership and dubious advice the council has received from Councillor Shelbourne Barrow. Her intransigence and refusal or inability to see, let alone accept, any point of view other than her own are not desirable qualities in the chair of this council. I've been continually sidelined and excluded from emails and telephone calls regarding issues that should have been put before full council. In fact, during the meeting on the 17th of August, Councillor Shelbourne Barrow actually said that she had made a decision in consultation with a number of councillors. Note, not all councillors, just a select few. Whilst any comments I have made or questions I've asked have been ignored. It has appeared to me that there has been a series of campaigns to discredit or damage, both emotionally and professionally, anyone not perceived to be towing the party line. At times, it has felt like being on the Titanic, with Councillor Shelbourne Barrow at the helm, setting a course full steam ahead for the ice fields. Consequently, I am now, sadly, abandoning ship.
Okay, thank you for that, Councillor Edington. I think I should make you aware that to resign, you need to formally write to council. So until that is done, you have not resigned, and the fact that Councillor Edington has left the meeting requires us now to formally make her aware of that. Would any other councillors who wish to speak as a resident wish to speak now? And now this is Sue Hinks who wishes to speak.
Yes, I am resigning from Wincanton Town Council as from now, Monday the 24th of August 2020 at 19:09. As I PM, as I cannot carry on as a town councillor, as I am not being as what's going on, as I am not receiving all my emails. Also, there is meetings with certain town councillors outside Wincanton.
I think Sue Hinks may well have frozen.
Yeah.
So we may have to wait for her to.
She's done that. Because she knows it's 3 minutes.
Oh, sorry, Sue Hinks, you're now
Yeah.
back. Would you like to resume?
Yes, I'll read it from the beginning again, so I'm not sure how far we got. I am resigning from Wincanton Town Council as from now, Monday the 24th of August 2020 at 19:09 PM. As I cannot carry on as town councillor, as I'm not being informed as what's going on, as I'm not receiving all my emails. Also, there is meetings with certain town councillors outside full council. This did not happen when our clerks was not off sick with stress. After 15 years being a town councillor, I have never seen the town council like this now. Yours, Sue Hinks, and here's my letter of resignation.
Thank you. If you could return that to the town council, I'd be grateful.
That I will be put in tomorrow morning.
Thank you very much. Anyone else wish to speak as a resident? Thank you. I'd like to invite you, Phil Rogers, to speak.
Yeah, I'm speaking on behalf of the town. I was voted in to represent the town, and I feel that this council is not representing the town at all. It's representing themselves, and I'm very, very sorry. After 30 years on the town council, I've never ever seen it in such a mess as it is now. You've got 10 councillors with the vote behind you all the time. And councillors should have their own opinions, not being bullied by one certain person. And as from now, I am resigning.
Thank you, councillor. Oh, sorry, Miss Phil Rogers. Can I ask that you formally put that in writing to council?
No, I've done it on Zoom, and everybody in Wincanton knows what I've done.
Oh, thank you very much. That's very kind that you've made us aware. So can I just ask, are there any further councillors who wish to speak at this time as a resident? Yes, Councillor Vagg, would you like to speak? And then I'll move to Kirsten Hearn.
I'm still Councillor Hearn.
Yes, but are you speaking as a resident?
Yes, I am.
So in a moment, I will invite you. I'm now going to ask Councillor Vagg to speak. Are you speaking as a resident, Councillor Vagg, or as a councillor?
Oh, well, as a resident, but I just want to say that all of the accusations made by those people here so far today, Councillor Old, Councillor Hinks, Councillor Edington, Councillor Rogers, are claiming that we do as we're told and vote as you tell us to, and that is absolute nonsense. And when a lot of people vote for one thing, it doesn't mean a fix, it means people agreeing with something, that's all.
Thank you, Councillor Vagg. Can I invite you to speak, Councillor Hearn?
Yep, won't be surprised now. For the last few months, it's been increasingly more apparent that I no longer have a voice in the council. My suggestions for the town are not listened to. In fact, they don't even make it to an agenda for full council discussion. I was elected by 500 residents to speak for the town, and I'm doing more for the town as a resident, which I'll continue to do. A member of staff put in a complaint over 2 months ago, which has still not been dealt with. This is wholly unacceptable. She has spent most of that time signed off sick. Another member of staff has now been signed off sick. Some members of this council are also struggling with stress, myself included. I've now been left with no alternative than to resign.
Thank you. Can I ask that you place that in writing and then deliver that to the town hall, please?
Absolutely.
Thank you. Councillor Old, you've spoken once. Are you wishing to speak again?
Well, actually, I hadn't finished when Ray put his hand up and interrupted me. Firstly, I would like to thank Councillor Edington, Councillor Hinks, Councillor Rogers and Councillor Hearn for having served this council exceptionally well. I'm saddened that it's come to their resignation. Secondly, I'd like to say that I'm disgusted but not surprised to see Greening, Glaziani and Vagg smirking their little heads off. I can honestly tell you that there is now not one person left on this council who I have got any respect for or I would vote for. This is the most corrupt council that I have ever known in Wincanton, and it is the most corrupt council that everybody's known in Wincanton. And I will now also resign and leave you muppets to bankrupt this council.
Councillor Old, can I ask that you put that in writing? Until anyone puts it in writing, signed and dated to council, your resignation isn't final. Someone has, there is a lot of noise going on. Can I ask that you put yourselves on mute, please? That's very, very clever. May I ask that Mr. Ellard speaks over the noise that one of our councillors is choosing to play at the moment, I believe?
Yes, thank you very much. I would like you to take this as due notice that I intend to call a town meeting under Local Government Act 1972. I will require 5 other electors than myself to sign the motion. I will be doing that in due course. I would also note a couple of things. You now have 5 fewer councillors than the beginning of this meeting, and you have fewer councillors who were elected by the public for you to have the general power of competence. So be aware that this council no longer has the general power of competence, and I would expect you to look up what that means and determine your course of action thereafter. And then finally, when you choose to fill the vacant 5 seats, please take this very carefully. I will be writing to the district council, the relevant person, with the required number of other signatures, to insist that there is an election to prevent co-option of further of your stooges to this council. Thank you.
Has at 17 minutes past 7, can I ask, is there anyone else who wishes to speak? If not, public participation is now at an end. So public participation is now at an end at 19:17. Thank you. Those councillors who have resigned, are you wishing to stay on the call? You're welcome to. So in terms of moving on to the next agenda on the item, I have apologies for tonight. So tonight I have apologies from Councillor Thomas, and obviously as of
We don't want to listen to this yet.
I'll turn her off.
Okay.
Turn her off.
Councillor Waters has yet to join us, unfortunately, but may well join us in due course. If she contacts any councillors saying she's still having connectivity problems, could you let me know? So in terms of other apologies, there are no others. So at the beginning of this call, I introduced you to our locum clerk. So I said that we go through the meeting and announce individual councillors one by one to make sure our locum clerk has your names appropriately. So I'm going to note people in the room. So Councillor Smith is in the room, Councillor Ralph, Councillor Vagg, Councillor Tudgay, Councillor Greening, Councillor Gazine, Councillor Power, and myself, Councillor Shelbourne-Barrow. So that means we are in fact quorate. So that's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 councillors. Am I correct in that? 8 councillors, thank you. We are quorate to continue with the meeting. So the next item on the meeting is minutes of the previous meeting held on the 10th of August on YouTube, streams live on YouTube. So can we, yes, Councillor Tudgay.
Declarations of interest.
Yes, I did. Thank you so much. And thank you so much. Right, so apologies. So public participation is completed. Apologies, which is Councillor Thomas. Declaration of interest. Members to declare any interest they may have in gender items that accord with the requirements of Council Code of Conduct. So can I ask any councillors who wish to declare an interest in any of the agenda items to state it now? Both verbally and with your hand up. No? Okay, no one's recording a declaration of interest. Now we move on to the minutes of the previous meeting. These are the minutes that was received, are in draft for Monday the 10th of August 2020, and they come to council for review and of accuracy and once and then approval. Sorry. So can we go through the minutes under 12A? Minutes and agenda were received. B, 12B around accuracy, and 12C if there are any amendments. So on page 1, does anyone have any comments? Page 2, ending in town council meetings. Page 3, items for the next agenda. And finally, page 4, the meeting was closed at 20:43:53. Does anyone have any comments to make in terms of the minutes? Can I ask then, if there are no comments, because no one's raising a hand, can I ask for a proposer for the minutes of the 10th of August? Councillor Power, can I ask for a seconder? Councillor Greening, and now can I ask for a vote from the floor, please, in support? So for the minutes is Councillor Power, Councillor Greening, Councillor Gazine, Councillor Tudgay, Councillor Ralph, Councillor Smith, Councillor Shelbourne-Barrow, and Councillor Vagg. Councillor Vagg, when you vote, can you move your hand across a bit towards your face? It's just, it got lost there a little bit. So have I recorded all of your names? And if so, yes. Can we agree that the minutes have been approved and therefore accurate? And this is the e-signature for the minutes. So I'm signing those as final. Thank you. Councillor Greening, I understand you're leading on planning today. So can I invite you to talk through planning?
Yeah.
Item 4.
Sure. So this is the planning application 20/01963/FUL, which is a proposed change of use of commercial unit from B1 business to auction house storage, sui generis use. It's on Bennett's Mead, Southgate Road, and that's the area opposite the firehouse station. I spoke very quickly with Lydia Din, who's putting in the application on behalf of her client. There doesn't seem to be anything kind of untoward in all the documents that have been submitted. They wanted to express their kind of enthusiasm and optimism for locating their business in Wincanton. They look like they've dotted the I's and crossed the T's. There aren't any comments or there weren't at 4 o'clock this afternoon. So yeah, that's the application.
Okay. Do any councillors have any comments they wish to make? The application is full, so it's the final. Is it the final application?
It is, yes.
Are there any comments? Councillor Ralph.
Yeah, just to say that initially when I read this, I thought for the change of purpose, they were talking about quite a lot of change of access, but actually when I read that they have 10 spaces, and obviously this is well above the required 5.25 apparently, that was fine. And then the other thing I wanted to note, which isn't directly related to the planning change, but I just think it's really positive for the town, is it creates 2 new jobs, this change of use to the new business. So that's got to be a good thing.
Yes, indeed.
I would just add an extra little note to something that Lizzie said. They were very keen to express that if the parking element was to be contentious, then they would like to kind of emphasize the fact that these auctions are every fortnight. The kind of the consumer patterns of people that attend auctions, they feel historically are usually staggered, so they don't anticipate any kind of congestion or overspill parking.
So do we have any comments we want to place on this before it returns to the planning department?
I couldn't see any that were noteworthy, going through the kind of the site plan and, you know, the sort of relevant paper trail. Like I say, they've all shown kind of due diligence. They've dotted the I's, crossed the T's. I wouldn't see any reason to prevent us voting on this going ahead.
Thank you. And any other comments? If not, we follow our process around a. Yes, Councillor Tudgay.
Like to propose that we approve this application.
Okay, Councillor Tudgay proposes approval. Can I have a seconder? Councillor Power, and can I have a vote please from council? So I'm going to go around slowly. Councillor Power, Councillor Greening, Councillor Gazine, Councillor Tudgay, Councillor Vagg, Councillor Ralph, Councillor Smith, and Councillor Shelbourne Barrow. So that's actually unanimous in terms of councillors voting on this in this meeting, with no commentary to go with it at this time. Thank you. So then we move on to the next item, because we have no other comments, I presume, from South Somerset District Council in terms of planning. I haven't seen any. So we move on to point 5, verbal reports and feedback. So firstly, I'd like to invite the Somerset County Council to speak.
Thank you very much, Madam Chairman. My name is Anna Groskop. August in County Council is traditionally a very quiet month, so it's business as usual. The only local item I have is that Jerry's electrical shop, which I think everyone knows, has complained bitterly about the inability to load or unload their equipment, or customers being able to do so because people are parked in the space. I've spoken to the highway officer, Gary Warren, and he's quite willing to support a loading bay in this area, but the town council needs to make a decision and consider it themselves, and then consult with Gary Warren what the next steps would be. So that's where we are with that. I have nothing else to report unless you have any questions for me.
Council, do we have any questions for our representative from County Council? So the item around the loading bay, can I put that to our newly emerging planning committee to actually look at with Councillor Thomas and yourself, Councillor Tudgay, and any other interested parties who wish to be part of that. We agreed previously. You're muted at the moment, Councillor Tudgay, if you wish to speak.
And Zach, I believe, is part of planning,
Yes.
isn't he? Mhm.
I believe so. I couldn't remember. That's why I said I broadened it out. I apologise. Okay, so can I ask that we look at that as a priority, because that came to council last time, but I felt we dealt with it outside council, but maybe we need to look at it in terms of a more structured response. So thank you for that. Can I now move on to South Somerset District Council, please?
You can. Can I add to that one? One that I've been dealing with recently is the rear door of Boots, which is the only door at the moment, and the parking outside. I have dealt with the county on it, and they are looking at it, but if you could put pressure on as well. There are so many cars parked there that you can't get in with a disabled or anything, or a pushchair. But if when you're looking at parking, you could include that one, it would be helpful.
Parking at the rear of Boots.
Sorry?
Is that correct? Parking at the rear of Boots.
Yes, the door that you go in as you walk up towards the co-op there.
Thank you.
There's always cars parked there, and quite frequently you can't get in with either a pram or a wheelchair. It is quiet at the moment, but South Somerset seems to have got itself in a mess with planning. They've been setting out a system to make planning easier for them, which is how developers and everybody put in their planning applications. But unfortunately, it doesn't always accord with the local planning act, with the Planning Act. Developers and agents are up in arms, so there's absolute hell going on at the moment, and the chaos is inevitable. The district councils have put forward their proposal for 2 unitary authorities, split down the middle with an East Somerset and a West Somerset, but the final decision will be made by at Westminster. The minister did tell them when they met him to look at the proposals for Cumbria and North Yorkshire, and I'm not sure that they have yet, but both of those are major and will be much larger than either of the 2 proposals up to now. I'll leave it at that.
Thank you. Thank you. So moving on, we have the chairman of council report, and then any council representatives to outside bodies to speak. So firstly, if I may, I'll give my report. So August, since we've started to emerge very slowly from lockdown, I as chairman have attended the Wincanton Chamber of Commerce breakfast meeting, talking about the Good Stuff Fund, our town initiative, and the other work streams that we are focused on within Wincanton as a council. And subsequently from that, I've also will also be attending further meetings, and when they hold their conference next year, the plan would be that we are very much part of that, and hopefully it will be a face-to-face if all things go well with the future. Also in August, I was honoured to attend the laying of the wreath at the Memorial Hall on the Saturday. The weather was poor, which was a real shame for those that attended, both in terms of speaking and in terms of watching the proceedings. But as I said, with great honour, I laid a wreath on behalf of Wincanton with Councillor Winder himself as well. On the Sunday, I also attended Wells Cathedral Evensong around the remembrance event to recognise those that gave their life and I was very touched by how well it was managed in terms of social distancing within the cathedral to enable many chairmen and other members of the public to attend the event. In addition to that, in the meeting, and I met with the High Sheriff of Somerset, and with that in mind, we had a brief conversation which has led to us meeting again with a planned event to talk about the town as a whole and where we can focus support, not necessarily led by the council, but the council being one of the partners to join people up and connect people around supporting those as we move further into the recession, and also with mental health and other specialist areas. But as I said, that's actually a beginning of a conversation with the High Sheriff, and that will take place this week. So I'm very pleased to be able to do that and explore what those opportunities look like. And I've started to have conversations with various residents who are actually fairly new to the town, but want to bring their skills and knowledge to the work of council, to support that work in various different guises, whether it's through the stakeholder group or other. So I think for the future, in terms of the town initiative and our work streams and the opportunities that exist, we have a beginning of a conversation on many levels. So now moving to council representatives to outside bodies, is there anyone from a councillor who wishes to represent a body that they've attended a meeting recently with? No? Getting lots of no's there, Clark. So we don't have any councillors representing outside bodies wishing to speak today. If we may, we can move on now to the checklist. If I can first ask councillors to look at that document. So today I took advice from SALC, who oversee our governance as a council, to get permission, or to get permission in terms of what we do and how we do it, to report these checks that we currently have in the office, to actually bring them to council today. So that's why it was late, because I didn't wish to prepare it without actually taking advice in the first instance, as we don't have a proper officer available at this time. So if I may, can I ask you to look at the checklist, and is there any questions you wish to ask about any of those in particular? And I'm happy to respond with the information I've had in the office. No?
No.
No questions. Okay, so with that in mind, can I ask for, if there's no questions regarding the second checklist of August, can I ask for a proposer for the checklist? Councillor Vagg, a seconder, Councillor Power, and can I ask for a vote from council if you're supporting the checklist? So I'm going to go round the screen. I'm going to start with Councillor Power in support, Councillor Greening, Councillor Gazine, Councillor Tudgay, Councillor Vagg, Councillor Ralph, Councillor Smith, and myself, Councillor Shelbourne-Barry. So that's unanimous, and therefore there are none against. So the next aspect of this is we need to agree 2 people to come into council tomorrow and sign. So Councillor Vagg has offered to sign. Is there a second councillor who can come into council tomorrow to sign? Or if indeed not tomorrow, the day after? Councillor Tudgay, you can't sign, can you?
No, I didn't think so. Sorry, I put my hand up as a volunteer, but I appreciate I'm not qualified to do that. So
I don't think you've been authorised, not that you're not qualified. So, but thank you very much for putting yourself forward. So we've got Councillor Vagg and Councillor Tudgay, who will sign the checks this week, and we can then release them. So thank you for that. And going forward, we will prepare the checks in that format for councillor to bring to council. Yes, Councillor Gazine.
Would you excuse me? I need to leave the meeting for a couple of minutes.
Okay.
I'll be back in a couple of minutes.
That's okay. I'm just going to mute Councillor Gazine, just because she didn't look very well, to give her some privacy. Can I now move on to terms of reference. So can I invite actually our Chair of Personnel to talk to these, please? And what I'd like to do is ask that the terms of reference are minuted individually so that we can review them individually, if I may. So Councillor Ralph.
Yeah, well, I'll start with the Personnel Committee terms of reference. So this document came to the Personnel Committee for their EGM last week. All the members present had reviewed the terms of reference. We made some small amendments which made them in line with our standing orders as they stand, and current with current council policy, and then have put them forward to the full council for their consideration. Thank you.
Okay, so in terms of this document, are there any questions councillors wish to bring to or ask Councillor Ralph? No? So can I have a proposer for the terms of reference for the Personnel Committee, please? Councillor Power. And a seconder, please? Councillor Vag. Thank you. And can we have a vote in support of those minutes, please? In support of the terms of reference, please? Councillor Gazine, I muted you, so when you're ready, you can unmute if you wish or not. So we're currently voting as council on the Personnel Committee terms of reference.
Yes.
Okay, so Councillor Power is in for, Councillor Greening, Councillor Tudgay, Councillor Vag, Councillor Gazine, Councillor Ralph, Councillor Smith, and Councillor Shelbourne-Barrows. So that's unanimous. Thank you. And those will come back to council. That is normally a year, so that will be a year from now in August 2021. However, if in 6 months we need to review these terms of reference, they can come back in 6 months, which is standard within our standing orders. Okay, can I invite you to speak to the complaints panel terms of reference, please?
Yeah, as the acting chair of the complaints panel, we had our first meeting, and the first order of business until we can do anything further was to write our terms of reference. We did this based on the advice of South West councils, and also obviously in line with any standing orders and council legislation that we currently have. And we prepared those and offer them to full council for ratification now.
Thank you. So are there any questions from council? No? Can I have a proposer for the complaints panel terms of reference, please, that will have its own minute number when it moves forward? Can I have a proposer, please? Councillor Ralph, can I have a seconder? Councillor Greening? Ralph. And can I have a vote from council if you're in support of the complaints panel terms of reference? So Councillor Power, Councillor Greening, Councillor Gazine, Councillor Tudgay, Councillor Ralph, Councillor Smith, and Councillor Shelbourne-Barrow. So from my counting, that makes it unanimous. Clark, are you happy with that? Yes, thank you. So with the same principle, this will have a minute number. It will be reviewed in a year, but it can come back to council in 6 months if necessary. Okay, thank you very much. Now we move on to point 8, which is the personnel policies. Now, with the same principle in mind, I think we should actually have a minute number for each of these, because we may need to bring them individually back rather than bring them back as a whole. How do people feel about that? Is everyone in support of a minute number for each policy?
Yes.
Okay, so are you happy, Councillor Ralph, to talk to these? Thank you.
Sorry, so is there a particular order you would like me to do them in, Chair?
No, you can, as you see fit, Councillor Ralph, as Chairman.
So I'll speak to all of them in the order they are in my folder. If that's
excellent. Good logic.
So they're obviously a set of personnel policies, so there's a common theme. But the first policy is the capability procedure policy. We met obviously at the personnel EGM and made some no amendments actually to this policy from the ACAS template really, apart from the only thing to note is it mentions the absence management policy, which is something that we will bring to council at a later date. And it's not something that we currently have in our legislation.
Okay.
Do you want me to then pause?
Where is that, Councillor Ralph? Which page?
That's on part 2 scope.
Oh yes, sorry. I thought it was further on. I went further into the policy. Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
So to come back, so we'll note that that is coming back to council at a later date, and I presume that will also be alongside the appeals panel terms of reference as well.
Sure, so when that's done, yeah.
So in terms of questions for Councillor Ralph to do with the capability policy procedures, is there anything anyone would like to ask? No? So we will update it in terms of the month and of August. It was approved in 2020, so reviewed in 2021. And we will, at the same principle, it can come back in 6 months if required, but if not, it'll be a year. Can I ask for a proposer for this policy, please? Councillor Greening, and a seconder, Councillor Vag. And then can I have a vote, please, from council if you're in support? So I'm going to start a different way this time for variety. So Councillor Gazine, Councillor Greening, Councillor Power, Councillor Tudgate, Councillor Vag, Councillor Ralph, Councillor Smith and Councillor Shelbourne-Barrow. Some from the numbers, that is unanimous. And this will have its own minute number. Thank you. Next one.
Okay, so the next policy is the disciplinary procedure policy. And actually this policy, we made no amendments at all from the ACAS template. So it remains the same as before. Thank you.
Okay. Any questions from council? No? Oh, Councillor Power.
Probably a stupid question. Because I wasn't in the personnel meeting because I had some personal issues to deal with. Did you send them out, Lizzie? Because I don't think I received them.
Yes, I did send them out, and also the they've come out from the town council website. Email, I believe, have they not?
Yes, they have.
Probably they've probably just got. I'll have a look later.
That's okay. Don't worry. Don't worry.
Okay, so in terms of any other questions, if there are none, can I have a proposer and a seconder, and then we'll move to a vote if there's no questions or any comments? Can I have a proposer, Councillor Smith? Can I have a seconder, Councillor Power? And can I have a vote, please? Again, this will have its own minute number. So Councillor Tudgate, Councillor Greening, Councillor Power, Councillor Gazine, Councillor Ralph, Councillor Vag, Councillor Smith and Councillor Shelbourne-Barrow. So that is unanimous. Thank you. Next.
Okay, the next policy is the grievance policy and procedures. And the only amendments we made to this were all nouns, basically. So the name of everything is in line with the terms we use in council or the relevant position with our legislation and standing orders.
Okay. Any questions from council? No, can I have a proposer, please? Councillor Tudgate, a seconder, Councillor Greening, and a vote, please. This obviously will have its own minute number as well for the same principles as previously. Councillor Power, Councillor Tudgate, Councillor Gazine, Councillor Can I start again? Councillor Power, Councillor Greening, Councillor Gazine, Councillor Ralph, Councillor Vagg, Councillor Tudgate, Councillor Smith and Councillor Shelbourne-Barry. I believe that's unanimous. Is that okay, Clerk? Thank you. Thank you.
Okay.
Same process as before. Next one,
Yeah.
please.
So next policy is compliments, complaints and comments policy. And the only amendments we made to this were actually typos and spelling corrections, thanks to the eagle eyes of Councillor Tudgay and Councillor Edington. So thank you for their work on that.
Thank you.
It remains the same as it did when it was checked by South West Councils and Selk.
Lovely. So are there any questions from council? No? Can I have a proposer and a seconder, please? So can I have a proposer? Councillor Greening, a seconder, Councillor Power, and a vote from council, please, in support, if you wish to support. So Councillor Power, Councillor Greening, Councillor Gazine, Councillor Tudgay, Councillor Vagg, Councillor Ralph, Councillor Smith and Councillor Shelbourne-Barry. That's unanimous. Again, it will have its own minute number and can return in 6 months, but it normally would return in a year. Next one.
Okay, and then the final policy, I believe, unless I stand corrected, will be community engagement policy. And again, thanks to eagle-eyed councillors, there was just spelling mistakes and typos on this one. It remains the same as when it was approved by our advisors.
Thank you. Any questions from council regarding the community engagement policy? No? Can I have a proposer, please, and a seconder? A proposer, Councillor Gazine, a seconder, Councillor Vagg, and a vote, please. If you're in support of the policy, so Councillor Power, Councillor Gazine, Councillor Greening, Councillor Ralph, Councillor Vagg, Councillor Tudgay, Councillor Smith and Councillor Shelbourne-Barry. So that's unanimous. Thank you. Same principles as before. It will be minuted with its own number, can return in a year's time, or if necessary in 6 months if there's changes that we need to take into account. So thank you very much for that. Much appreciated to the chair of the Personnel Committee and the Personnel Committee for reviewing these in an extraordinary meeting last week to enable us to be in the position today to take these forward and approve. The next item on the agenda, unless anyone wants to talk about anything else to do with Personnel Committee, no, thank you, is Christmas tree. So last time we had a really extensive discussion about the Christmas tree, and in the minutes it's recorded as we wanted to cap it at £3,000 to include everything, including the purchase of the Christmas tree, installing it, decorating it and removing it. So that was our focus. So what we then did is we actually went to 3 suppliers, but the third one has not come back to us. But we have 2 suppliers who have given us costs. One is Super Plants, and this is for, they also said, actually, I should say, that there's great difficulties in getting trees above 24-25 foot this year. I'm not really sure why, but there is. And so we've gone for a tree that is slightly shorter than the one we had last year at 27 feet, which is 24 to 25 feet. The cost in terms of the whole, electrician, putting the lights up, the cherry picker, and all the rest of it, everything that I've just quoted and the labour costs came to, with our local discount, and is £2,995 plus VAT. Councillor Power.
Oh dear. We decided, wasn't it £5,000 for the maximum we would spend on a Christmas tree? From
No.
last meeting, I think.
I think we can check the minutes, but it was
I think it was 6,000. I think, was it?
Right. Right, Councillor Greening, would you like to speak?
No, Tom. The Christmas budget is 5,000. And then we've appropriated £3,000 for the tree, which was leaving the £2,000 left over, which we're implementing the schools program,
Okay.
which we'll come on to in a minute.
It isn't on the agenda, Councillor Greening, is it? Oh,
I thought it was one and the same, Christmas tree and lights.
oh,
but-
to receive an update on Christmas tree and lights. Beg your pardon, I'm looking at the agenda. So in terms of the Christmas tree, for the 24-25 foot, we asked for a cap on 3,000, including everything in terms of what I stated. It's come in at below 3,000, but it plus VAT. The other quote we received was from another provider who talked about a 20-foot tree. So in this instance, the tree is 1,500. Yes. So the Christmas tree is £945. Delivery on site and special vehicle. Erecting the tree into the existing tree pit is 1,500. The other one we had was just for the tree, so a 20-foot was 2,500 and a 25-foot was 4,500. So before we even add in any other aspects to adding lights and so forth, so the cost is actually more. Councillor Greening.
It's just a kind of a footnote in terms of the costs. I understand is that fee including takedown and disposal?
Yes.
It is, okay. Because in historical years, we've always had to pay an extra fee for that,
We'll do 1 minute.
that service. And I think historically we've paid £300-400 for the removal and disposal, but I wondered if that quote of £3,000, just under £3,000 was.
No, it does include. So it talks about the tree is just £945. Delivery on site and erecting it is 555. So that comes to 1,500. Then it's the rental of the lights, which is 595. Installation of the cherry picker and electrician to connect the lights and labour is 545. There's an additional cost for the electrician's cost to connect the lights, which is 115. Then the removal of lights after Christmas with the cherry picker and electrician is 385. Then removing the tree after Christmas and recycling is 135. There is any damaged lights and associated labour costs incurred due to vandalism will be invoiced individually and additionally. So the total cost was £3,275, but with the extra local discount, it comes to £2,995 plus VAT. So it does say remove the tree after Christmas and recycling.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, I'm happy to share it. We haven't booked it in terms of delivery date, but the cost in comparison to the other one, just for the tree, is far cheaper, and that's in the budget of 5k, but incorporates the tree and the Christmas lights. But obviously, one of the Christmas lights proposals has been removed. Yes, Councillor Tudgay.
I would like to propose that we accept the super plants a bid for the Christmas tree. We've dealt with them in the past. They've made a very good job. They know what they're doing, and I think it would be the best way forward to accept their bid.
The only thing we've got to do is arrange permission to use the electricity supply as we did last year, but I presume that's a normal process that we do. It states it in the letter. Happy to share the full quote with everyone, but it will be installed before the 30th of November. That's the actual cost. So there is proposal on the table for Councillor Tudgay. Can I have a seconder, Councillor Power? And can I have a vote in support of the Christmas tree, please? So Councillor Power, Councillor Gazine, Councillor Greening, Councillor Tudgay, Councillor Vagg, Councillor Ralph, Councillor Smith and Councillor Shelbourne-Barry. So that's supported, I believe, unanimously. So on the other one, it was an update on the Christmas lights. So Councillor Greening, Do you need to declare, should you have declared this actually at the beginning of the meeting under declarations of interest?
Yeah, I don't know. I sort of deliberated on that at the beginning of the meeting. I still don't have. Yes, perhaps I should have, and I will happily step outside of the meeting if I need to at this point. But what I'm going to come back to you with is just a report from Wincanton Primary School.
So firstly, before you start, Councillor Greening, you're declaring an interest as a councillor in relation to the Christmas lights that you previously had brought to council, where you declared an interest also. So we'll just note it again today.
Okay.
In terms of a peculiar interest because of the financial cost, I'm going to ask the clerk for the clerk's advice. Have you got any advice on that for us, clerk? You're sorry, I'll unmute you. My apologies.
Are you saying whether Councillor Greening should leave the meeting while it's discussed?
Once he's given his update, if we need to take any further action.
I think it's a good idea that a councillor does leave it, because then there's no argument about it afterwards.
So if we vote, then he leaves, but if we don't vote and just provides an update, he can stay.
He can stay, yeah.
Okay, Councillor Greening, please provide us with an update.
So it was advised that I have a conversation with Wincanton Primary School in relation to health and safety procedures with regards to COVID and what those procedures might look like. And Graham Wilson, the head, was happy to proceed with me going into the school. He's very keen to see it happen. But I think it's worth leaving a footnote, which is, if the rumors are true about a kind of a second wave and subsequent schools policies, meaning that schools close down, then I think it would be worth the council looking at contingency plans to allocate the balance of the Christmas budget into alternatives. So in short, yeah, Wincanton Primaries are still full steam ahead. They're really keen to see it happen. It's just he will give me written confirmation of that when he gets back from holiday.
When's he back from holiday? Is that September?
No, so he went off on holiday yesterday. He did say that he would send me a written email confirmation before he left. Obviously he hasn't done that, so I will prod him again when he gets back from holiday, which I believe is next week.
Okay, thank you for that. So at our last meeting, when we first discussed this, where we voted on it, we put in a sort of a hold. So we were broadly approving, subject to national policy around COVID and social distancing and groups and so forth. And we were going to take advice from the school. Since then, Councillor Thomas has withdrawn one of the Christmas lights proposals, so we now only have one. So how does council wish to proceed? Because we're sort of we're still in the same place. We've got a proposal on the table that could be pulled because of a flare-up or the school's not opening. So how does council wish to proceed? Yes, Councillor Green.
Is this the point that you want me to leave the room?
You don't need to. This is council deciding whether or not we go for a bigger discussion, then talk about the money. So then you would need to leave the room. But are you happy with that, Clark, that we're just having a discussion at the moment? Yeah. So Councillor Tudgay.
I'd like to ask Councillor Greening of the sort of the time scale to produce these Christmas decorations with the children. What sort of time scale is that? How long do you think it's going to take? Because this would have some bearing on you know, whether it was done before another potential lockdown, or if you see what I'm trying to say.
Yeah. So In terms of the timelines, that was a document that I sent you a few weeks back, maybe even a couple of months, but I'll happily go over it again. It's a 3-day workshop with most of the school, I think years 3, 4, 5, and 6, which amounts to something like 300 and some odd kids. There is prior to that, there's 1 day pre-production, and then there's 2-day post-production and a 2-day install. So it's a commitment of roughly 8 days of my time to implement the project. In terms of the costings, I think there was in that figure, the balance that we talked about, there was £300 for lights. So yeah, I'll happily send you that document, Ray, if you can't find it, but it should all be outlined there.
Councillor Ralph?
Will this project happen in November?
Yeah, so what I'm scheduling is that it'll be probably after half term. That's what I was talking to Graham about. It will be, the installation will happen before the 1st of November, which is the 1st of December, which I believe is when the Christmas lights have historically gone on. So most of the exact dates in November I don't have for you because they're not in place yet, but we are, because he has to now go and pitch that to his art personnel committee, the calendar, that sort of thing. So exact dates I don't have for you, but we are earmarking a week period in November.
Okay. So what I'm hearing is we're still not able to proceed, so therefore we're not going to vote further on it today until we get confirmation. It's not to do with the project per se, Councillor Greening, it's to do with the money is protected in the Christmas tree and lights budget, and that's 5k. We've allocated just under 2,995 for the Christmas tree, plus sourcing the electricity, which hasn't been costed, but I'm sure we've done that before. So we need to, there is money protected to do this, but at the moment I can't see how we can proceed further. Councillor Ralph.
I was just going to say, could we agree a date though by which we will make this decision? Because I assume
yes,
the project will be affected if it, you can't plan for it accordingly.
So what are you comfortable with, Councillor Greening?
Yeah, no, for me, it's an official detail, which, I'm happy to subscribe to. I think I will just I'll push for Graham to give me written confirmation that he's happy for me to go in there with certain kind of caveats or conditions that will come down from a sort of governmental top-down directive. But I think what I would like to kind of emphasize is a discussion about contingency plans. If there is a kind of a second lockdown, I think it would be a shame not to consider alternatives for the balance of that Christmas budget. Putting it out to tender, getting other ideas. I'll happily put forward my own ideas, but obviously expressing kind of pecuniary interests. But yeah, I just would like the council to consider the contingency plans if I'm not able to go into the school.
So Councillor Tudgay and Councillor Vagg. Councillor Tudgay?
Would if we left it to around half term, would that be too late to put a contingency plan in, Zach?
I did, well, there are two things, obviously. I mean, lights are my professional occupation, so I can certainly meet, apply resources with kind of 2 weeks notice. You will be really quite limited if that route is what you decide to go down as to what you get. You wouldn't get necessarily anything from a build point of view, a new build point of view. But I would say, in answer to your question, if you were putting this out to tender, I would think it was very unlikely that you would get any kind of professional organization able to meet that timeline. So you need to really kind of, yeah, that's all I can really kind of objectively comment on, actually.
Thank you, Councillor Green. And Councillor Bagg.
I was thinking, bearing in mind that we're only supposed to have council meetings every 2 weeks. I know it's not been that recently, but anyway, we might get a problem in getting it voted at some point when they decide to shut the schools or something. It may not fit in with a council meeting. Should we not vote for this now on a contingency basis so that we know it's there, and if we can go ahead, we go ahead?
Okay, that's a really good idea, subject to flare-ups and the schools not allowing it to proceed. The other part, just before we proceed into that, is in our financial regulations and in our standing orders, it talks about over a certain amount going out to tender, but it also speaks about specialist providers of services, and that's where I think this might sit within, where we may choose to only choose one particular organisation because it is a specialist area in its own right, and I believe that's the case. What it says in our standing orders and around commissioning of services. Does anyone know that? Quote that. I'm just going to have a look, because actually, if we're going to move to voting on this, I want to make sure we've got it right. So please feel free to number page 18. It's in section 18. Sorry to be okay. God, there's loads of them. Hold it, 1 minute. Financial controls. So that's the bottom of, I think it's page, oh God, it's different, 19. And then it goes into public contracts regulation estimated over in excess of 25k, which is not what we're doing, but less than that.
Perhaps Richard might be able to illuminate us on that.
If Richard knows, he can. The clerk can actually please feel free to. But I'm just looking through this because it's not a public contract.
Yeah, I did read some of your financial things. I didn't see it there.
No, because it talks about largest sums. I think it's in the financial regulations, to be honest.
Yes, I think it came up in conversation historically, and the clerk then was saying that there was a degree of kind of specialist application, which meant that the budget constraints were not necessarily put in place. So I don't know what it is verbatim, but I know the point that you're trying to raise, Sue.
The only bit it says is where contracts within an estimated value below 25,000 due to special circumstances are exempt from tendering process or procurement exercise, which this is below because it's 1,800.
Yeah, it's something like that. Yes.
Okay, so I think it's below the standard, and we can choose to decide it's a special circumstances. Councillor Tudgay?
I think we ought to make this an agenda item for the next meeting.
I would.
So that we can double check our financial regulations, our standing orders, and make sure we're doing the right thing. So I really think we should move this to either the next meeting or the meeting immediately after that.
So the next meeting is the 14th of September and the one after that is the 28th. Do you feel, Councillor Greening, by the 28th, the schools would have been theoretically back for nearly a month? So we'd have a good understanding of whether there were issues around that. So can we suggest that by the 28th of September, our next full council, this comes back? And in which case, please can you declare at that point a declaration of interest, and also if we go to a vote to actually proceed, you would then need to leave the room having declared a peculiar interest.
Yeah,
Is
no,
that
listen,
okay?
I can certainly chase down Graham and get that written consent that you need to have in place. I just can't
Lovely.
guarantee when Graham's going to respond to my
No.
gentle prodding, that's all.
No, if we say the 28th of September, that gives that will give them nearly a month, and then we'll be in a better position to proceed.
Yeah.
We'll make a decision at that point, but the money is still protected within the Christmas tree and lights budget.
Yes.
How do you want this noted, Clark? Is it as a statement, or do we need to vote on this as a proposal in terms
I think it's just as a statement. I mean, you're not really voting on it.
Okay, thank you. That's
I will
brilliant.
just write it into the minutes that it's going to be on the agenda for the, is it 14th or the 28th?
28th. I think we go
28th.
for the 28th of September,
Right.
and that gives Councillor Greening sufficient
Yes.
time to get a
Yeah.
response back, and they would have
Right.
been in school for a period of time as well.
Mhm.
Okay, thank you for that. So now we move to correspondence. Oh gosh. So earlier today, I'm sorry it came quite late in the day, but I was collating correspondence. There were 5 points of correspondence. First one was from Catch, and they were noting that the second information board had been installed in Kell Park, and they'd like to gift it and the sign a memorial wildflower meadow to the town and the town council, and hope that they will provide interested visitors to the park for many years to come. So how do we want to acknowledge this, and how do we proceed? Councillor Tudgay?
I'm led to believe, Chair, that normally the clerk would simply write and you know, say that it's been accept their gift and thank them. I'm not sure whether there is a template letter for that or not, but it's obviously happened in the past because they've gifted us quite a few things over the years. So somewhere there must be a template letter which would do the job.
Thank you. Do we need to vote on that, or are you happy to note that as a statement?
Statement.
Lovely, thank you. So it's noted as a statement. And I wish to thank personally and actually on behalf of the Town Council, Catch, for their sterling work in support of the town and the green spaces, and for the signs that have been placed at key locations in Kell Park, providing information for children and adults. So thank you for that. On the second correspondence item is the Repair Cafe. So the Repair Cafe we supported as a council through the Good Stuff Fund. We have yet to release the funding for this because we do not have a responsible officer to do so at present, but we are working to achieve that. But this is really promoting the Repair Cafe, but also looking for volunteers who might want to sign up and support this good work. So this is an information sharing, but also this directly links to the Good Stuff Fund that was within our town initiative. So thank you for One Planet and the work they're doing around that. Are there any questions in relation to that? No, so we'll note that. The next one is NAUC, and the National Association of Local Councils, and it's PC 1020, changes to current planning system. Now this was shared with us as a council. It was available when Councillor Tudgay and I spoke at our extraordinary meeting, I believe, and it's subsequently been shared with council. And they're looking for, this is a consultation document, and looking for responses by the 17th of September 2020. So with that in mind, this would seem the right document to go in the first instance, if we could, to the planning committee to look at, or members of the planning committee, to then come back to council so we can respond as council to this on the 17th of September. So our next meeting is the 14th of September. Do we feel we have sufficient time to be able to do that? Councillor Greening.
So I've read this document 2 or 3 times, and I feel kind of woefully ill-equipped to be able to make any kind of educated and informed decision on this. Now, I'm happy, you know, to do the background research and to self-educate, but
Yes.
I think I'm kind of speaking aloud as to my fears. I would hate to kind of make an ill-informed judgment on this document without getting kind of some sort of professional input from people. You know, I can give you an emotive response to this, but I can't give you a kind of academic qualified position on it without any kind of degree of training, if you like. And I suspect I'll probably have to kind of take a few hours of Councillor Winder's time to get up to speed on these things. And if I am going to go for a tutorial, for want of a better word, on it, then is there money for sort of training days available, or what? I'm sort of asking a rhetorical question in many ways, or really just kind of opening it out to the House, so to speak. Ray, how do you feel about this document?
Well, I totally agree with you, Zach. I think as lay people, we're totally unqualified to make very few comments. I would welcome Colin's input. And I don't think we really have time to go and get trained in a way that we could answer many of the questions in the document. So I think we need to speak with someone like Colin, get what free advice we can, and I think we should respond, but quite how, I don't know. I totally agree with what you've said.
What I'd also like to understand as well is what Somerset Association of Local Councils is doing to support councils and parish councils to actually understand this document in more detail. So if you're happy with it, I'm happy to contact SALC and ask that. That doesn't preclude you from speaking to the wealth of knowledge that Councillor Winder has in terms of planning. You're muted. You're welcome to. I invite you to speak, Councillor Winder, if you want. If you don't want, that's also fine. But I'm happy to look and see what SALC are doing, and if we can join any events where we can literally come up to a level of understanding around this, even if we don't formally respond. If we're part of a bigger conversation, that may well be useful. Also with SSDC. If there's one of those events going on where they're capturing this, then it will be useful also to be part of that. Do you want to speak at all, Councillor Winder? If not, I'm not forcing you to. Please feel free to decline.
We've normally had parish meetings of Area East with the parishes on things like this, but the Area East and South Somerset generally are in total chaos in the planning terms. Yes, I've looked at this document and I agree with you. It's a nightmare. I'm quite willing to go through it with you at some stage and have a look at it and see. A lot of it doesn't apply to you anyway, because you don't have the you don't actually deal with some of this stuff. But we can go through the bits that you do deal with and make your feelings known.
That would be great. Thank you for that, Councillor Winder. So if I leave Councillor Greening, Councillor Tudgate, when Councillor Thomas is available to meet with Councillor Winder to try and move us forward in terms of some understanding and contributing to that, that would be great. Thank you. Councillor Vag?
Well, I tried to read this document as well and I was getting really stuck. But if there is going to be, if Colin's going to be very kind and do a chat, I'd love to, you know, go along and hear it. Seriously.
Thank you, Councillor Vag. So you've got some willing volunteers to meet with you, Councillor Winder. He's looking forward to it. I can see that. Thank you, Councillor Winder. Right, I'll move on then. So the next item on the agenda under correspondence is 4, and that's to do with parking restrictions in Church Street, to do with some waterworks supply. overnight on the 26th of August to Thursday, the 27th of August from 6 p.m. This is just a sharing exercise because that only arrived in the office today, but it's actually happening this week. So to make residents aware who are potentially watching, you should have also received some sort of communication directly with you if it impacts on you. The final item, correspondence 5, is a press release. Forward Thinking Council delivers for its communities yet again. And this is to do with SSDC, its ambitious and forward-thinking council that is committed to transforming and improving and adapting to be ready for the future. And this was shared with us, and it also has a link within it for access to a plan, and it's built on an annual action plan of 2021 agreed by full council earlier this year in February, and included 8 priority projects and 38 areas of focus under the 5 themes: protecting core services, economy and environment, places where we live, and healthy, self-reliant communities. And it's a press release. So can I invite councillors just to look at it, because we are one of the noted regeneration projects, of which South Somerset has Yeovil, Chard and ourselves Wincanton, and you may find it useful to review that to get a better understanding of where we are. So it's an information sharing exercise. Okay, so that from my understanding is correspondence today. In terms of other, next on the agenda, we don't, sorry, before I move on, we don't have a clerk's report today. But if I may ask that if there is a subsequent clerk's report, we will bring that back to council at the next meeting and incorporate any elements of that that need to be within that document. If we now move on to items 11, which is items for consideration for the next agenda, and the next agenda is the 14th of September. So we do have about 3 weeks. It's an unusual time frame for us not to see each other on live stream, but 3 weeks until our next meeting. So the items that I'd like to talk or include myself, and if there's anyone else before I move on, you're all going to partial darkness, which is a odd thing because we're still in August, chaps. We're still in August, but 2 of you are merging into darkness. Thank you very much, Councillor Ralph. So does anyone else have any agenda items they want to bring to the meeting today? Councillor Tudgay.
I'd like to be put the recreation ground, Kell Park, on the agenda, please, Chair. But there's a couple of updates I think councillors should be kept aware of. And we did speak at the last meeting of putting the sports ground funding on the agenda. So I think that should also go on the next agenda.
I'll come to others that are waived in a moment. There was more than one of the preset grants that required a review at midpoint. I thought the other one was the Bolson Centre. So we will look at the sports ground, Kell Park, with a conversation being led by Councillor Tudgay, the sports ground and the Bolson Centre in terms of a mid-year review to release the second tranche of money. Is there anything else, Councillor Tudgay, around green spaces or open spaces? The only other thing that we probably need to understand is what happened to the benches at the top. Right. Yes, Councillor Tudgay.
Sorry, I meant to chase this today. There should be somewhere in correspondence a quote for the repair work. We have a meeting of the trustees in a few weeks' time, so if someone could find that quote, that would be useful, and then we could make a decision or discuss it at possibly at the trustees meeting, and then come back to council to discuss again.
Thank you.
There is somewhere a quotation from Mr. Sampson on the trading estate to do the work. Sorry, but I completely forgotten about that.
That's okay. We can see what we can do in terms of looking through our mailbox to find that. Before I move on to other items, Somerset County Council, do you wish to speak, Councillor Goss?
If I may, Madam Chairman, it's very rare that I would and it's up to you and your councillors whether you listen to me or not. But I feel very strongly that you need somehow to deal with your communication with each other as councillors. You need a website. You need very, very quickly to review your IT principles. And also each councillor who is elected to your council should sign the Nolan principles when they are elected and should comply with them. It's very important, I think, that each councillor has their own website, like Colin Winder at wincanton.gov.uk.
Yes.
And you only use that for council business.
Yes.
It is not good practice to just use your communications on Facebook. This is not good practice by anyone. So
No.
I implore you to look at your communications.
Thank you.
Thank you for listening.
Thank you. And your point is well received from us as council. We've talked about this numerous times. I would like to put it on the agenda for the 14th of September. We already have some of this work stream in play. So we will come back with more of a proposal on what that would look like for us to have council email addresses and strengthen our IT and our governance around that. And the point about the Nolan principles, which is written in our ministerial code in our standing orders, I personally 100% agree and would sign those, even though I've been in post for some time. And I would suggest we'll bring it back to council and we'll prepare that document for councillors in post to sign and date at this moment in time. Is everyone happy with that as a conversation piece to bring back, and we'll discuss that in more detail?
Yes, definitely. Yes.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Now moving on, it looks like a fairly full agenda, but I do think the Kell Park, the sports ground and Balsam Centre in terms of the year 6-month review and release of monies is key. The Nolan principles and individual email accounts is also important, so that will come back. Councillor Power.
Can I also add to the agenda? I've had quite a lot of complaints about the skate park and the park not having enough bins, such as recycling bins, because I've been down there quite a lot and the bins are overflowing and there's a lot of litter around, and they asked for recycling bins. So if that's something we could maybe do. Yes.
So does this need to come back, Councillor Tudgay, to the next meeting, or can we resolve this outside of council? Just for the immediate, because it'll be another 3 weeks before we even look at it.
Don't know. I think we will have to discuss it at full council to get the funding, because obviously the bins aren't cheap. No. I'm pleased that Thomas talked about the recycling bins. I've seen these in other places, and I think you know, in future we should certainly look at putting in recycling bins as opposed to simply litter bins. So I think we do need at some point to discuss it as full council. I could certainly, I mean, we haven't had a recreation ground working party, but I think perhaps it's time to try and reinstate that, even if it is by Zoom, and see if we could do it that way, perhaps.
So we have one, but we've just not, it comes alive at a given point. How does it work, Councillor Tudgay?
Sorry, the recreation and working party. Well, up until lockdown, we were meeting every month or 6 weeks, but of course, since lockdown, you know, everything's fallen behind, and with the other things going on in council, you know, it's been sort of dropped to one side. Okay. But I can certainly make an effort to reinstate if you know, if everybody else is in agreement.
So we'll bring it back to council to agree to reinstate, but in the meantime, can we do some work to understand what the costs look like for these bins, so we can come back as well with a proposal around that, because we don't really want rubbish all over the town. Yes, Councillor Ralph? Oh. You're muted, sorry.
Oh, my fault. No, just further to all your points, I completely agree with Councillor Tudgay and yourself. But in the short term, bearing in mind this will, you know, take weeks and months to approve the cost of any bins and then actually put them in place, how often and who empties the bins? And in the short term, is that something we could increase just to solve the problem?
I'm going to look to Councillor Tudgay, who may have a better understanding of emptying of bins than I do, because we currently empty, Steve, our groundsman empties bins for us on a daily basis, but they're not recycling bins that
I
I'm
think
aware
the other
of.
problem is disposal of the rubbish, because I think we have an agreement with SSDC at Yeovil, with district. I think they take our rubbish for us. So I think the best way would be to have a word with Steve, but it seems to me that there's insufficient bins to take the rubbish on any given day at the moment.
Okay. All right. So I think we bring it back to council on the 14th. We come with a proposal. In the interim, we'll have a conversation with our groundsman to see if there's anything we can do to empty bins more frequently, and if they can be, if we can do anything to support recycling. If not, it'll have to come back on the 14th. Is that okay for everyone? Right. Any other points, Councillor Power? Because you also asked about lighting previously, didn't you?
Oh, yeah. Did you speak to Ray about that? Because I think you did the other night. Well, if you haven't, they basically asked if they could have the lights on a little bit longer because they're down there during summer holidays and they haven't got much time left before they go back to school. So they just want it on a little bit longer.
So this is in addition to the request last time.
Yeah.
That they were extended, but they're not been extended sufficiently to give enough light over a longer period of time. Yeah. Okay, I'm going to leave that with Councillor Tudgay to pick up outside the meeting, if I may. Are you okay with that, Councillor Tudgay? So moving into the agenda, because I don't want to spend all our time necessarily, as important it is on items to the next agenda, but AGAR, we need to bring that back and where we are with that. The appeals committee, I'd like to think that in September, if it's not the 14th, but the 28th, the terms of reference for the appeals panel come to council. We don't have to elect the chair for that in council, because they can elect the chair for the appeals committee while in situ once we've agreed the terms of reference. So it's just the terms of reference for the appeals committee that needs to come back. So if I leave that with you, Councillor Ralph. I do also want to discuss in September the finance, an extraordinary meeting around the finance committee, but we can't do that unless we've got a responsible officer in terms of responsible finance officer. So that will have to be dependent on that. But I do wish to bring a proposal for that to come back before the end of October when the next meeting is due. Also, under one big update around the stakeholder group, WEEP, and the Good Stuff Fund, if there are any proposals that need to come forward, they would have been through the stakeholder group in early September. So I'd like them to come to the 14th of September for council review. And hopefully, which is a short update, if we've been able to undertake a risk assessment on the town hall chamber and the memorial hall. If we're able to do that at the beginning of September, it will come through on the 14th. If not, that will come through on the 28th. And the only other bits we're outstanding can come, I think, at a later date. But the one that I'd like to see come back in September is the agreement we had around outside bodies and almost like a job description for a councillor who attends an outside body. It's been written, but it needs to come back to council to be ratified. So I'd like to bring that back. That shouldn't be too difficult, but it's a formal process. And at that point, I think that's enough for anyone in terms of the 14th and 28th as it stands at the minute on top of our normal business. So I'd like to remind council that on the 28th of September is the first personnel committee in its own right. And as long as there's no issues that don't require a closed meeting, that can be transferred, that can be shared on YouTube. Just to make Councillor Ralph aware, I've taken advice on that, unless it's a closed session, in which case we'll vote to exclude. Other than that, thank you very much for your time. And I look forward to speaking with you in due course. And if any of you wish to speak to me, you know where I am. I will be in the town council, I think tomorrow PM with another councillor if you wish to talk further with me in person. If not, please give me a ring if helpful to do so for us to discuss next steps around any of these pieces of work. And I want to thank you for your time tonight and for the work that you're doing, and the ones that are stepping up and supporting us to keep the town council office open and supporting the work we're doing. Then I very much, as a chairman, appreciate that, and we as council appreciate that. So thank you very much and have a good evening, and meeting closes at 20:37.
Thank you very much indeed.
Thank you. Bye-bye. Bye. Bye.